On this episode of the Adapted Lens podcast, I talked to real estate photographer Aleksey Volcheck of Virtual Open House. So what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm pretty good considering the circumstances, I suppose. I'm still shooting houses. I'm not sure if that's considered essential business, but keeping my 6 feet distance, I guess it's essential business, maybe. If I have to prove it that it's essential business, I think I'll be able to wiggle myself out of it.
So what clients, is it primarily just real estate houses that you're doing?
Yeah. A lot of these houses that I'm currently photographing, I think they were getting ready to hit the market before this whole thing started kind of manifesting itself in the last 3-4 weeks.
Gotcha.
So I'm just getting the tail end of it. So I'm not quite sure what's ahead. And it's usually, right, to answer your question directly, it's usually the real estate agents. Every once in a while, I would get for sale by owner. It's not so much the shoppers. I think shoppers are more or less ready for that whole 360 and virtual tour and shopping from home and being online savvy shoppers. I think it's mostly the realtors. I mean, I have realtors like every time ask, "Hey, can you put the virtual tour on YouTube?" And it's like, no, man, it's just a bunch of 360 pictures put together in a slideshow. They think that virtual tour is a video. So it's a huge learning curve. And I think because majority of the real estate agents don't understand it, they just don't even want to dive in and order something like that they don't understand. So that's been my most significant challenge.
Gotcha. So what kind of equipment do you use?
To create the 360 videos, I'm using I have two actually. I have Ricoh and Insta360 1X.
Gotcha.
I like the 360 1X better for video, and it's a better stabilization than Ricoh. And the Ricoh is the Theta V model.
Yeah, Ricoh got into the game 360 pretty early on, so it's interesting to see other companies like Insta360 come onto the scene, and now GoPro's got their camera. I think they're all kind of playing catch up at this point.
Yeah, it's like the Kodak, who was the leader in cameras and in film. All of a sudden, they even created their own. They were the first ones to create digital camera, but they kind of dismissed it.
Yeah, yeah, back in the 70s.
Yeah. So just because they were leaders back then, somebody new like Insta360 could come on and really dominate the market. And I think Insta360 is doing a pretty good job doing that. It has a really nice cameras, and it has really nice technology.
Have you used the whole disappearing selfie stick thing?
I have, and that's exactly what I use for the past couple of, I would say like last 10 days, I've been offering a 360 video tour to these realtors who are adventurous enough to try this whole thing. And it's kind of weird because I can't make myself go away, right? Like, so the cameraman becomes also the subject. So I just walk around with that invisible stick. I'm just following this realtor in this 360 video. So it looks really interesting.
Do they lead you? Like, do they explain features as you walk around kind of thing?
Right. We haven't really got a really good hang of it. I think there is something to be said about thinking in offering maybe like different styles of this whole thing, because some people are not comfortable on camera.
Sure.
And when you tell them, hey, this is a 360 camera, it sees everything around it. As soon as I pass, I see them in my peripheral vision. They're like, kind of like checked out. And I just told them that everybody still sees you, but they're checking out. They're like, wondering or yawning, and they're like, oh, okay, checking the time. And it's like, you're still on, people see you.
So when
So,
you do an edit for a 360 video, are you guiding the viewer, or are you letting it be pan and tilt and they can kind of look around as much as they want?
so, like me editing are not really good friends.
Gotcha.
So what I really like about the 360 videos, and then there's not really much that you edit. There's no, it's just a continuous shot really. And every time you watch that video, people can look at different areas. They can even hit pause at any point and still look around,
Right.
with the comfort of the pause. Uh, People, I think you are able to direct people's attention in a 360 video. Um, but I think it's more about the platform that you use. If Facebook has like hot points or hotkeys to do that, although I've played with that feature unsuccessfully. I still don't have, um, I tell the Facebook which part of the footage, which part of the screen I want the 360 to move towards, but every time I play the video, it just doesn't do it. So I don't necessarily understand how to do it. Um, and then there's another way, the Insta360, that has that ability to track an
Hmm.
item in the video. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but that kind of takes you out of that 360 mode. So it's still a new thing that people are trying to figure out. Like how do we cook this 360 video, and what do we eat it with? It's like nobody really knows.
Yeah, I love that, kind of love that part of the emerging technology. I've seen a lot of YouTubers like myself that are switching away from using GoPros or bigger cameras and switching to the Insta360 style cameras for shooting B-roll or shooting piece to camera stuff. And it's funny because they hold in this, that they're walking around with.
In fact, tomorrow, well, tomorrow or regardless of the day that I do it, I'm trying to wrap my mind around like how would I do a some sort of like a lesson, video lesson on how I produce pictures for realtors. And I've been thinking about just using the 360 camera. Why not?
Yeah. Well, I
Because
mean, that's the cool part about that technology is it's so flexible.
yeah, yeah, and it's very immersive. Why not? I don't have to worry about camera angles, nothing like that. I can just draw attention to whatever it is that I'm doing, and the person would just scroll down.
It kind of hides a lot of shortcomings, because you can straighten it, you can rotate it, you can change the composition in all in post. So you kind of have a lot of flexibility. I've shot real estate, and other than a wide angle lens and some flash, there's not really a whole lot of opportunity to be super creative. But with 360, you really can get kind of neat.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I kind of like that about real estate is that it is in that sense. I think more of a scientific approach than art.
Yeah,
60/40 is scientific. You stand. As long as you show three walls. You do this, you do that. It's like just variables, just check mark, boom, boom, boom. Um, so that is exactly why I kind of want to put together a cool little video lesson so that I can show what it is that I'm doing, because I do want to expand. I want to expand my operation and get more photographers on board. And I don't really know how to do that. I would like for continuity to be there, and in order for continuity to be there, and to put together some sort of online class or something.
well, the nice way, the nice part of that approach is that, you can go places where you aren't necessarily. So your company can expand beyond the borders of Florida or Florida County and really
Yeah,
cover anywhere.
yeah, that's right. Well, with a name like Virtual Open House, I had people. I guess they're all like a lot of people are typing that into Google, and I guess I pop up there. So I've gotten a couple of requests from definitely outside of Florida, like New York. I got Massachusetts, two in California, and one as far as Australia.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right, I got to seize this opportunity, I've been thinking about putting together a class of some sort for other photographers to join in. But it's like, all right, it's now. I have a little bit less booking probably coming up in the next couple of days or weeks, so I got to use this opportunity to do this.
So talk to me a little bit about how you got into this, because it's kind of a unique niche.
Well, yeah. So I got my marketing degree in Cal State Long Beach, and while pursuing the marketing degree, I was I've embedded myself in the culture of Long Beach by being the photographer guy. Wherever there's concerts or city events or whatever, I'm just out there with a camera documenting things. So I grew my network that way, and one of the people that I came across had introduced me to the head of marketing at Keller Williams Long Beach office. At the time, I was doing Google Street View,
Mm-hmm.
and we sat down to talk to the head of marketing over there, and I was trying to sell him the whole Street View. But then that kind of grew into, all right, maybe I should pursue the whole photographing real estate. And then when I finished my school, I got like a internship / a job with this busy realtor from that office. And I just started shooting real estate listings for him only, and that kind of got me started. I didn't have the right equipment when I was doing it. Definitely doing it gangster style.
It's
with
okay.
with the fisheye, and then I would just like correct it in the post, make it less fishy. It's like 8 mm, like really fisheye. Um, it got like a really weird drone at the time. I didn't have license, nothing. It was like super. I was using my iPad to fly it. It was a disaster. And at some point, I almost took out a mailbox, and I was like, "Oh, I should probably not fly this thing."
Yeah, right. That's
Yeah.
property damage is where you got to draw the line.
Yeah, it was a nice mailbox too. So.
That's scared me in the past shooting real estate. You go in with I shoot with the tripod on those kind of things because I want my lines
Yeah.
nice and straight. And they just painted the house most of the time. They just had the carpets cleaned, and I'm walking around with this tripod that all I can think of is
perfect.
scratch or a big puddle of mud falls off the tripod because last week I shot on a mud flat for wildlife, and I used the same tripod. So yeah, it's a little scary.
That's funny. That's hilarious.
So you were talking about what you did before Volcheck Shot Me, which I really enjoyed watching. Are you still pursuing any of that?
I guess I would if I lived in a city, like
Gotcha.
where there's nightlife. It's hard to do what I did with Volcheck Shot Me here in Palm Coast, even though I tried, like going to Finn's and every once in a while where the party's at. But I mean, how many times am I gonna go to Finn's where the party's at? Tortugas maybe. So it's such a niche with Volcheck Shot Me that I've decided to look elsewhere. And part of my decision to move from LA to Palm Coast is I said to myself, I could definitely pursue real estate photography here because that's pretty much, a lot of business is real estate in Palm Coast.
Yeah.
And one of my personal favorite authors out there is Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn. And he one of his sayings, he's the guy who mentored Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
So he's one of the OG guys, of the whole personal development stuff. And his favorite saying is, well, my favorite of his sayings is, making money is easy. You just have to find something that you can do and work hard at it. So I was like, all right, I can take pictures. I can definitely take pictures, of houses especially, and that's easy. I just have to work hard at it, and that's exactly what I did. But yeah, the challenge is that it does get redundant. But it's like that with anything. It's like same thing with I was pursuing acting earlier, and it's the same thing. You get a part, let's say in some theater, and yeah, sure, maybe the first week of you doing that part in that play, you're gonna have fun. But on the 30th time, 40th time, 50th time, if you're a professional actor, you still have to entertain, go out there and do those things. And it gets redundant. So I think anything in life gets redundant,
Yeah, I was just thinking about, when me back in the day when we were in a band, and it's the same thing. You play the same songs 100 times, and if you're playing in front of an audience, you got to make it like it's the first time you've ever heard it, and it's the best thing you've ever played.
Right. Like you just came up with it. It's like, wow, we did this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hard with creativity in general. I mean,
Right.
I'm primarily a wildlife photographer, and the birds are the same birds that they are everywhere I go, especially if I just stay in Florida. So it's hard to be creative. And how do you do that? How do you stay creative shooting houses?
It's a challenge, right? So my most important thing is to have some sort of a system, and having a system allows me to have those boundaries where I can then explore. And I think during those, within these boundaries is where I can probably get creative. It's again, it's kind of like limited unless you're shooting maybe like a very beautifully architected houses that are mansions that are has been designed by award-winning architects,
Right.
then perhaps, yeah, there's definitely room to get creative. But if it's, you drive around Palm Coast, they're very similar houses. So inside, similar houses. So I think maybe it's it's hard, but I don't always shoot wide. Sometimes I zoom in to show the true dimensions of the rooms, for example. That's one of the ways. I've also looked at some of the magazines that showcase these, beautiful houses, mansions, and what angles they use. So I've incorporated some of those angles as well. Like, for example, raising my tripod pretty high. With the wide angle lenses, you got to get a higher uh, elevation, and then you're kind of able to uh, create this feel as if you're already like the same feel as if you're standing over the counter in the kitchen top. So that's an interesting angle that I got the inspiration from one of those magazines. I don't know. I don't know how much creativity can you get shooting real estate. I think the system is more important.
So talk to me a little bit about that system. So you go to a shoot and you're doing photos and some 360 stuff. What do you take with you? Kind of walk me through a shoot.
Yeah. So ideally, I would definitely start with a drone and outside and work my way in. Once I'm done with the drone, so I got the pictures of the drone and I got some aerial clips that I'll put together in the video. Then I go into the house and I start with ideally a virtual tour, either Zillow or, I do Zillow 3D. Some people request Matterport. I don't like Matterport, but if they request it, I'll do it for extra. But it's usually Zillow 3D. So I start with that. And then that does primarily for me, obviously I get to do one thing and then boom, I'm done with it. But it's also as I go through with creating that virtual tour, I'm able to see, if the lights are all on and everything else like that. So then once I'm ready to shoot the pictures, everything is perfect. So I've walked through the house, then I start doing the virtual tour. So it's kind of gives me that extra time to make sure that everything is picture perfect. And then I start my pictures, and then I usually end with a video.
So for your pictures, 16 to 35 is kind of your lens, or do you shoot 24 to 70, or what's your
Oh
stroke?
no, I shoot with 10 to 20.
10 to 20. So you're pretty wide. You're
Yeah, very wide. And, some people say, hey, we don't like the pictures to be, not true to scale of some sort. But I tell them, look, it's my job to show the relationship between the walls. That's how I approach real estate photography, is that it's, when buyers are there shopping for, I guess I approach real estate photography as more from the marketing sense than from a photography sense.
yeah.
Um, I have an experience from shooting and starting my whole thing with the real estate photography goes back to, I mentioned before, was the Google Street View. And when I was doing Google Street View, I joined like a Google Street View Facebook, group or whatnot. And it's just so interesting to hear that how many photographers take their, that service to servicing other business essentially so serious as a photographer. It's
Yeah.
for me, it's more about business than photography in a sense, like, so I know that my pictures is mostly going to be viewed by buyers. So it's important for me to communicate the relationship between these walls to these buyers. So that's how I see it.
Sure.
So that's how I tend to explain the whole like wide lenses. It's like, yeah, it maybe is wide. You're right. But this is why I switch it up and I zoom in, right? So for example, in the master room, this is what I usually like to do in the master is, yeah, I'm going to use the wide lens and I'm going to try to find a way for me to show 3 walls. But then I would stand, let's say, opposite of a big window, completely on the opposite side, and I would just zoom in. And this way we see, how really wide the room is, because we'll see the window, the wall, and just the corners of the other opposite walls. So this way it gives the buyer like some real perspective. It's like, oh, okay, I understand it's a wide lens. And I tend to give benefit of a doubt to shoppers. It's really easy to say like, oh, you gotta pretend that everybody's stupid and talk to these buyers as if they're stupid. That's a lot of marketing approach. Like,
Sure.
keep it simple, stupid. But for me, it's like, if they're shopping online, and I think I'm for a house, especially for a house. This isn't like some toys that they're shopping for. These people are pretty educated. So I think they understand the concept of a wide angle lens.
Well, and I think today, especially if you're a realtor or you're just starting out in the real estate world, you're probably not hiring a photographer and you're shooting pictures with your iPhone kind of thing, and those are wide lenses anyway. I mean, iPhone is I think 18
They
or
even
20.
have those lenses that you can buy for them.
So tell me a little bit about business model. So you want to take it obviously beyond the borders of this county. Well, are you looking to bring photographers in under your business brand or as a hired
Right,
person?
that's the angle I haven't really figured out yet. There's so many, like I said earlier, like I approached this whole thing as a business project rather than a photography project. So yeah, I'm not quite sure. I think I would like to attract like-minded photographers who wouldn't take real estate photography personally. And what I mean by that is, I'd much rather work with a photographer who loves photographing, live concerts, for example, but maybe isn't something. The thing is, like, real estate photography is a great income producing thing during the day. A lot of photographers do not produce income with their photography, right? A lot of photographers are like artsy fartsy kind of photographers who
Sure.
consider themselves of artists, and they approach their photography very seriously from perspective of art, but at the same time they're not producing income at the levels that they could with their photography. So I think I would like to attract photographers who don't really, or who haven't thought about even real estate photography as their income, and who don't want to spend time building a whole new brand to attract to turn heads of the real estate market towards them, because that's pretty difficult. That's very difficult to build
Sure.
a brand and get people in the real estate industry to turn heads towards your brand. So it's going to take a lot of effort. So why not, instead of pursuing that, you can continue pursuing your photography passions, but during the day you can get a gig or two, real estate gig.
So
Whenever.
how long does it take you to shoot a house? Just, ballpark.
Depends on the house, how big it is, but from 2.5 hours to about 4 hours.
Yeah. Okay. That's my experience too. It took
Yeah.
me a reasonable sized house about 2 hours.
Yeah, but recently it's been like, all right, have I taken a picture of this room yet? And then you're like, oh man, like everything, all these houses are blending into one.
So do you prefer houses that are decorated or do you like them when they're empty?
I like them decorated. I actually work with the Leave It to Lucy. She's a professional home stager. I'm not
Hmm.
sure if that's the technical term for it or not, but she stages homes that are for sales that are would be empty, and it makes it a lot better for me, especially like just composing a picture is a lot better when there's stuff in the room.
Yeah. My most recent house was empty, completely vacant. And it was hard because it's like, okay, there's just another empty bedroom.
Yes. How
And
you
it's hard
turn
to tell
it.
scale.
Exactly. It's exactly it. So yeah, it's very hard. So unless you have this wide angle lens, who then people say, oh, the room looks bigger than what it is. It's like, well, you're shopping for a house. You probably came across this a couple of times now. So
Right.
it's just there to show the relationship, like where those walls are. And then, like I said, I like to sometimes turn the camera from a different angle and just point to a wall, just to show that the wall that you saw in the previous picture isn't like this. It's like this.
Right. So do you still use that fisheye at all?
No, not well, just for parties. That's it.
Yeah, not for real estate.
No, although it's really cool picture, and the businesses like it. Some of the restaurants have used that fisheye lens pictures that I've taken for them, just because it's like in one picture just shows the entire restaurant, and it's not like stretched out. It's kind of caved in. I don't know. It looks a little bit better than stretched out,
Right.
I think.
So that's a good segue. Do you do commercial work, or are you primarily doing like houses for real estate?
I think I have hard time like juggling my focus between like different things. So I found like maybe safety and harbor in the real estate. But I mean, like I said, I did come from that whole pursuing I guess commercial work with local businesses. The problem with that was is I realized that it took so much effort for me to sell them the idea that this is something that would help their business.
Right.
Um, that I would earn their business just once, and then I would have to do this all over again. So I was doing selling more than I was doing photography when I was pursuing that. So I wouldn't turn down anything like that if it comes my way, but I'm not pursuing it actively.
That
Uh,
makes a lot of sense. What about commercial real estate, like a realtor selling a shop or selling a warehouse or something like that?
the adaptation of technology is really slow. Uh, I'm not sure if it's like in U.S. culture or if it's just worldwide. Um, but if it's not broken, it's why fix it, right? So I think the commercial real estate has its own game going on as far as marketing goes, and it's not broken as I guess as they see it. And I don't know. I haven't really like pursued it, so I haven't really even tried it. And for when I had a chance to photograph something like that, it just seems people don't really care to.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a commercial thing. And I mean, unless it's a multi-million-dollar factory, but I'm nowhere near that world. So chances of me coming up on opportunities like that are probably
Well, we don't live in an industrial city, so it's not like we have many big.
right. And I have a feeling going after that sector is maybe a little premature on my part. Like I definitely need to look into getting a couple of photographers on board first. And once I do have that, then I'll have the ability to look around a bit.
So I have the $1 million real estate question. Do you shoot HDR for your photos for interiors, or are you strictly one exposure?
HDR, all of them.
HDR.
Yeah, I don't mess with flashes or anything like that. Just strictly HDR. It makes it consistent, smooth, predictable.
Yeah, I think that's just the way to make it simple. I've done it with strobe and I've done it without, and it's not any more fun with strobe.
Yeah, it's a lot more complicated with strobe sometimes, and I would say most of the time, really. How's your photography thing going right now? I mean, with stay-at-home orders coming in, you can still probably go out and shoot pictures of birds, no?
I would like to say yes, but most of the parks are closed, so it's getting tougher and tougher for me to find places to go shoot. And my bread and butter is teaching, and people don't want to be with you because no
Right.
group's more than two, so I
What is
can't
it that
lead
you're teaching? Have you
workshops.
thought about teaching online?
Yeah, actually, got a couple webinars coming up. Thank you for bringing that up. I got a
Oh,
couple.
nice.
You can go on my website and register. So yeah, I'm sort of shifting my model over to the web for now.
Is
I'll
it
probably
is it
do.
teaching the wildlife photography?
It's more like Lightroom, how to manage Lightroom, how to deal with Photoshop. I'm going to be doing one on Premiere, how to edit video, a little bit of maybe some After Effects.
You're gonna put together an online lesson on how to use Premiere,
Yeah,
like a full Premiere thing.
yeah. It'll be a webinar with chat and everything like that. And
Huh. Very
um,
interesting. I'm interested
yeah,
in that. I actually work with an editor, and I can see that he can use some, room for improvement. So I'm in the market for an online course for Premiere. Uh,
Cool. Yeah. So the plan is I'll do a live version and then I will transcode it, stick it up on my website as a digital download for a lesser fee because you don't get the live interaction, question and answer period, stuff like that. So
yeah,
you can buy it
awesome.
both ways, either way.
How long do you plan on having this video? Or do you think this video is going to be? How long is it going to be?
I would guess it's going to be an hour to 2 hours for live because questions,
Right.
and then depending on how long it goes, it'll edit down
Yeah.
to something shorter.
Well, what kind of information? I mean, I'm not saying you can give it all up. I'm just saying in 1 hour and an hour and a half, what can you what can I learn from
I
you?
could teach. I could teach a lot more about Premiere in an hour or hour and a half than I can about After Effects in an hour or hour and a half. I can tell you
Very
that much.
interesting. Very
I'm
interesting.
actually teaching one on one with a young gentleman who is in high school or actually middle school who wants to be a filmmaker, and so every week I do a conference call. It was in person, but now it's a conference call, an hour
Hmm.
long, weekly, and we've been doing that for several weeks now. And
Oh wow.
he's getting good at it, and it's a tough. That's tough, but Premiere you can get pretty far down the road in an hour, hour and a half. Do you edit your own photos, or are you
No, no,
farming it out
I
as a
edit
local?
nothing. I edit nothing.
Oh, really?
I edit nothing because this ensures that I'm gonna get it the next day.
Yeah,
Because after shooting two houses, I'm gonna come home, take a shower, and oh my god,
yeah.
it's just really hard. But here, pressure's off. I'm done. In the morning, I get up, I deliver everything. So it's important to put together a good team.
Well, and I think a lot of wedding photographers. It's not your specialty, but they're turning to that art farming out because they can make more money shooting than they can
Yeah.
sitting in their computer and editing 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day. To
But yeah, that's what they say. You first concentrate. Any business, they concentrate on what they can do best, and they outsource everything else. I mean, look at Amazon. Started out as a bookstore.
right,
It just focused on books. That's it. And it became so good at it. Then they said, hey, we can expand our, you know, he basically built a really good expandable system, an online retail system, and he just expanded it to everything else.
right,
And it got as far as winning a bunch of what is it, Oscars or whatnot on their Amazon Prime platform. I mean,
yeah,
who would have thought that a small little operation of online book sales can win Oscars 20 years after that? So it's the same thing. Yeah, it's. I'm glad that this is a good trend. I think people working together. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think especially after COVID-19, I think the decentralized workplace is coming. I think people working from home or working remotely is just a matter of time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everything is ready for it. There's been numerous books written about it. Like I said, during our conversation about the commercial real estate, right? It's like, hey, if it's not broken, why fix it? What I've experienced, people don't want to upgrade or update or anything else like that. I mean, look at where we at with energy. We can
Sure.
definitely completely wean off of gas and coal and everything we can. It's just that it's not really broken, so why fix it? There's a lot of money that are still being made and pouring in from old. So it's the same thing with that philosophy. Like, hey, I'm a wedding photographer. I take amazing pictures. I'm going to charge $10,000 per wedding, but I'm going to edit everything myself.
Right.
Okay, yeah, you can, but while you're editing, your competition is shooting, three or four $3,000 weddings, so
Or three or four $10,000 weddings and just have the time to do it.
or even worse, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, they're not having to turn down clients.
well, yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think like if you're outsourcing, you're able to kind of like lower your price a little bit because now you can get more volume, right? So you're
Right.
shooting three or four, maybe 5,000 weddings, while the premier guy who charges 10 is stuck at home editing,
Right.
and he's not getting paid for editing.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing to explain when I've shot weddings in the past. It's okay. So I was there for your 8 hours, and this is my cost. But really, then I go home, and it's days of editing because I took 4,000 pictures.
Yeah, not only editing, you have to figure out, which makes the cut, which doesn't. And, it's taxing in your system, especially for the fact that you have shot it, right? So you have a lot of self-judgment going on as well.
And then I think automation is going to come into play with some of that stuff here pretty soon.
In what respect?
Well, like Adobe Sensei, where you don't have to tag things anymore because artificial intelligence knows it's a tree, and so you don't have to write
Oh,
tree
nice.
tags. So that's going to save photographers a ton of time.
That's awesome. See, I never even got into this whole tag thing. I can see how it can be beneficial. I just never got into it. I just didn't understand how I can benefit from it. But having AI do it, man, I would love it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Except
Yeah.
that I have a feeling that if I type in like house into my library, AI would just show up all of my pictures.
All your pictures. Yeah, so then you'd have to be more specific. And so this is where it gets really interesting. So say your camera also takes GPS information, you
Yes.
can tell it the street address and house, and it would pull up all the house pictures from whatever street address it was. And
Huh.
that's where AI becomes pretty
Yeah,
powerful.
that's nice. Yeah, I guess that would be nice with the street address. Yeah. I can see how that could be useful because then I don't even have to worry about categorizing it by
Right.
folders. I have a really difficult time where I had difficult time, still do maybe, but I think I figured it out. How to organize my files because I move a lot of files, between the editor, clients, and every client sometimes have different preferences on how they want their files to be delivered. Wow. So I have a Google subscription, Google Cloud. I have Dropbox Cloud. I have WeTransfer. I have all sorts of different delivery things that I pay monthly.
Well, it's actually a question I wanted to ask. So you have a distributed workforce, you're creating the content, but then people are editing it for you. How do you get it to them? How do the fixers, the photo or video editors, fix it, turn around, and get it back to you? Is it
Yeah, I
all
guess
done?
it's just the cloud. Yeah, there's actually a big company called Photo Up, I think, and they edit it a lot. It's like editing house. They're based out of Philippines. They edit like real estate. They edit product photos. So they're kind of like the industry leaders. They're like the Apple of the of the editors.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and they have their own system. You log in. You have your account. You log in into the system. You upload it to their cloud, I suppose. There's many ways of doing it.
That makes sense. And that's again a great method for today's technology because just a few years ago, internet wasn't fast enough. You'd have to be taking a flash drive or
Right,
CD, mailing it
right.
to somebody, and
And I mean, and that's another thing that like what I'm trying to convey is you're going to spend a lot of times, not a lot of times, you're going to spend a lot of time creating something like that, creating a whole system from scratch, right? So what I'm trying to accomplish here is to save the photographer the headache and just concentrate on shooting houses. If this is something that they are not particularly passionate as far as building their name on their real estate photography, then that's basically the photographer that I'm looking for. I guess to answer your earlier question, one of the first questions actually.
no, that's perfect. So, how do people find out more about getting involved in your business if they're photographers? They would have to have their own equipment, of course, right?
But yeah, essentially, yeah, I would like you to have your own equipment. But right now with this whole COVID-19 thing, I think I have an opportunity to roll out something that's easier. So I'm looking right now for photographers who have just a 360 video camera, or either a 1X or Ricoh, and especially if you can do Zillow 3D, if you're already a Zillow certified photographer that does the Zillow 3D, that would be ideal because not a lot of realtors have taken advantage of the 360 technology yet, but they have the houses on the market, and people can be going to these open houses. So
Right.
I'm definitely looking for people who would want to participate, who have a 360 camera, and who would want to earn some extra cash.
And that's anywhere in the country.
Yes, with a 360 camera, anywhere in the country. Yes.
Cool. And how do they get in touch with you? What's some of your stats, website, etc.?
They can drop me a line by going to my website and using the Facebook Messenger button there on the bottom right corner. And the website is virtualopen.house. It's pretty simple.
Virtualopen.house.
That's right. So it's www.virtualopen.house.
Perfect.
Yeah. Easy to remember.
Yeah, that's good. Well, thank you, Alex. I do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Great
It's
opportunity.
awesome. It's awesome to talk to other photographers. I know this is a tough time for all of us, so I love hearing how everyone's trying to make it work.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Did you enjoy this episode of the Adapted Lens podcast? Well, if so, please consider subscribing. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and consider supporting the Adapted Lens on Patreon. And until next time, thanks for listening.